"You're not that old, Mark," Sarah giggled, too loudly for how small our patio was. The laughter from the other guests faded awkwardly, some glancing down into their beers, others pretending to scroll their phones. Everyone felt the sting, but nobody wanted to be the first to acknowledge it. Sarah didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She was already 2 glasses past her limit, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with the kind of attention she used to reserve for me. Now it was pointed at someone else. At Jake, the neighbor. 5 years younger, tan, cocky, the kind of guy who still wore sleeveless shirts to barbecues like he was trying to relive a high school glory that never really existed. And she kept leaning toward him, laughing harder at his jokes, touching his arm a little too long when she pretended to lose her balance. I sat there quietly, a half-finished beer sweating in my hand, watching it all unfold. Not just tonight. Not just this one drunken slip. It had been building for months. The late-night workouts. The sudden interest in finding herself. The secret smiles at texts she never bothered to explain. She thought she was being subtle. She thought she was clever. And maybe the old Mark, the one who believed every word she said, the one who loved her without question, would have missed it. But that man was already dead. He just hadn't left the building yet. Jake grinned wide, tossing a half-empty beer can into the recycling bin like he owned the place. "Come on, Mark," he said, nudging Sarah with his shoulder like they were in on some joke together. "You gotta loosen up. Life's too short to be serious all the time." I smiled. Not wide. Not real. Just enough to keep the game alive a little longer. "You're right," I said, voice calm, even. "Life is short." Sarah didn't catch the weight behind the words. Neither did Jake. They just kept laughing, kept flirting, kept digging the grave they didn't even know they were standing in. I sipped my beer slowly, letting the bitterness burn down my throat. The sky was turning that bruised purple just before night takes over. The lights on the back deck buzzed and flickered. The grill sizzled as the last of the burgers charred black at the edges. And in that moment, sitting there with the taste of cheap beer and betrayal thick in the air, I made the final decision. No fights. No screaming matches. No confrontations where she could twist the truth or cry her way into sympathy. No, she wasn't going to see me broken. She wasn't going to watch me beg. She was going to watch me vanish. And when she did, she would finally feel what I had been feeling for months. Invisible. Later that night, after the last of the guests stumbled out the front door and Sarah crashed into bed without even brushing her teeth, I stayed up, sitting at the kitchen table, one lamp on, silence pressing against the windows. The house smelled like burnt charcoal and spilled beer and cheap perfume she hadn't worn for me. I stared at the phone lying in front of me, hers. Face down. Screen cracked in the corner. Passcode changed a month ago because work required new security. She never told me the new code. Didn't even pretend to. That used to hurt. Now it just made things easier. I picked it up. Tapped the screen. She hadn't noticed the tiny fingerprint smudge earlier when she opened it in the living room. Hadn't realized the oil from her fingers would leave enough of a trail for me to guess. Third try I was in. No drama. No suspense. Just a man opening a door he already knew he didn't want to walk through, but had to anyway. The messages were all there. Hidden under an app disguised as a meditation journal. Mind clear. A clever front for encrypted chats. Jake. When are you going to tell him? Sarah. Soon. He's too blind to notice anyway. Jake. Or maybe you just like having both. Photos too. Some blurry. Some crystal clear. Jake's hand on her thigh. Sarah biting her lip into his shoulder. Sarah on a hotel bed I didn't recognize, wearing lingerie I'd never seen. The same woman who sat across from me last week telling me she just needed space to find herself. I scrolled in silence. No rage. No tears. Only confirmation. The kind of cold certainty that kills the last good thing inside you and sets something else in its place. Something sharper. Harder. Quieter. I could have confronted her right then. Could have shaken her awake. Thrown the phone in her face. Demanded answers. But what would that accomplish? She'd deny. She'd cry. She'd twist it into something that wasn't betrayal, self-discovery, loneliness, unmet needs. She wasn't sorry. Not really. And you can't save someone who isn't drowning, just swimming toward a different shore. No, confronting her would give her power. Letting her live a little longer in the fantasy? That gave me time. Time to move money. Time to call a lawyer. Time to set the stage. Because when I left her, I wasn't just walking away. I was going to make sure she was left standing in the ashes of the life she set fire to with her own damn hands. And the best part? She'd never even see the match until it was too late. It didn't take long to set everything in motion. I moved slow, quiet, like a man easing out of a house he knows is already burning. Bank accounts first. We had 3, 1 joint, 2 personal. She barely paid attention to the finances, trusted me to handle the boring stuff. So I handled it. Transferred my personal savings into a new account she couldn't see. Switched passwords. Locked down retirement, insurance, titles. Froze her out, legally, cleanly, in a way that wouldn't raise red flags until it was far too late. Then I met with a lawyer, a specialist, one who didn't flinch when I laid it out. I want to vanish, not hide, not run, disappear. But I needed to look like she pushed me there. She raised an eyebrow. Then she nodded. I've seen worse. Next came the digital side. I logged out of everything: email, cloud storage, social media. Wiped my phone. Disabled my GPS history. Deleted every trace of where I was going. The only thing I left behind was a scheduled email, set to send 48 hours after I left. Subject line: you were right. Attached was a Word doc with a short note. I was never enough. You said it, and I believed it. I hope you find what you're looking for. Goodbye. That was it. No signature. No location. Just enough self-pity and brokenness to paint the picture. To anyone who found it, especially Sarah, it would read like a suicide letter. A quiet surrender. Exactly the narrative she needed to live with. Because what she didn't know, what she never even considered, was that I had no intention of dying. I was going to live better than I ever had, without her. But first, I needed her to feel the weight of my absence. The silence. The guilt. And when she stood in front of the mirror, staring at herself in that big empty house, crying for the man she betrayed, the one she thought she killed with her lies. She'd never suspect I was alive, healthy, free, and already building the next chapter. The morning I left, I didn't pack much. Just a duffel bag, cash, fake plates on the car, burner phone, a name nobody knew. I stood in the doorway before I closed it one last time. She was still asleep upstairs, curled up in my old t-shirt, probably dreaming of someone else's hands. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. She'd said enough for both of us, back when she thought I was too blind to see the truth. I closed the door behind me, turned the key in the lock, slid it under the mat, and disappeared. She cried on camera. Full makeup. Hair tied back in that grieving widow way. Face puffy, red-eyed, the whole look, like she'd studied it off a Netflix true crime doc. The local news ran the story for 3 nights straight. Wife pleads for help after husband vanishes without a trace. She clutched the photo we took at our 10-year anniversary like it meant something to her. Talked about our unshakable bond and how I'd been struggling silently with depression. She even said the word soulmate with a straight face. And the town ate it up. For a minute, people dropped off food. Her work gave her time off. She posted grainy pictures of me with captions like, "I miss your smile. I'll never stop searching." But behind the tears, behind the candlelight vigils and sympathy casseroles, something darker was setting in. Guilt. Real, sour, gut-twisting guilt. Because while she played Widow of the Year, I started sending gifts. First, an envelope. Plain, unmarked. Dropped into her mailbox one morning before sunrise. Inside, a screenshot. Just one. Her in a motel room. Half-dressed. Jake's hand on her leg. Time-stamped a week before I disappeared. No note. No return address. No context. Just that single frame. She didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, another package. Flash drive. Encrypted. Her sister's husband, a retired IT guy, cracked it open for her. Inside? Audio recordings. Private. Shaky, grainy. Her and Jake. Her saying my name. Mocking it. He's just so boring now. He wouldn't notice if I vanished. Funny. I noticed everything. She stopped responding to sympathy texts after that. Stopped going to work. Stopped showing up at the Find Mark event she started. The mask was slipping. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse, her boss got a tip. A polite email. Anonymous. Subject line. Unfit for leadership? Attached. Screenshots of Sarah's messages to Jake. On her company phone. During work hours. HR called it conduct unbecoming. She called it slander. They called it your last paycheck. And suddenly, the woman who stood on the 6 o'clock news asking for prayers was stuck in a silent house, jobless, alone, and unraveling. I wasn't done. But the first cracks? They were deep. And she was starting to feel them every time she opened the mailbox, every time her phone buzzed with no caller ID, every time she looked in the mirror and wondered, how much does he know? You could track the timeline of her unraveling by the tone of her posts. At first, they were sweet, polished, heartfelt. Day 6 without Mark. I feel so hollow. Please keep sharing his photo. I just want him home. Sympathy rolled in by the hundreds. Prayers. Candle emojis. Old friends commenting, you two were so perfect. He'll come back. But sympathy has a shelf life. And the truth? It rots faster than grief. Because the rumors started. A post on the town's anonymous message board. If you knew what she was doing while Mark worked overtime to pay their mortgage, you wouldn't light a candle. Then a local Facebook group comment. I saw her with Jake. More than once. Nothing widow-like about that. She tried to delete them. Report them. But they multiplied. Because I fed them. Whispers became conversations. Conversations turned into suspicion. Her best friend, the one who stood next to her at our wedding, unfollowed her on everything. Her cousin blocked her number. And Jake? Jake bailed hard. Not with drama. Just silence. One day he was at her house. The next, he wasn't answering her calls. She knocked on his apartment door 3 nights in a row. He didn't open it once. And on the 4th, he posted a selfie with his ex-girlfriend, captioned, sometimes the grass isn't greener. It's fake turf. The comments section? Brutal. People started turning their sympathy on me. If he really is gone, she killed him. Maybe not with a weapon, but with what she did. She was out partying with that clown while Mark was missing. Red flag much. And then came the nail in the coffin. A video. Not from me, not directly. An anonymous dropped to the same gossip page that posted her candlelight vigil. Short clip. Grainy. Timestamped. Her. In Jake's lap. Laughing. Wearing the same blouse she wore in her TV interview 2 hours earlier. It went viral in town. 1,200 shares. Dozens of comments. The top one? She's not a widow. She's just a snake who lost her meal ticket. She deactivated her accounts the next day. But it was too late. The town had made its decision. Mark wasn't the one to blame. Mark was the one who got away. And Sarah? She was the one who killed everything she touched. After the town turned its back, after Jake ghosted her, after the last sympathy basket went unopened and the last neighbor's pity dried up, Sarah fell into something worse than grief. She fell into irrelevance. The first few months were public. Awkward appearances at church, where old women stopped shaking her hand after service. Whispered conversations behind her back at the grocery store. Mothers pulling their kids closer when she walked by. She tried to fight it. Tried starting a Find Mark Facebook page. Posted throwback photos of us. Younger, smiling, fake. Only a handful of people followed. Most of them left bitter comments beneath the posts. Funny how you didn't miss him until he was gone. Maybe you should have looked closer to home before asking strangers to search. She tried switching jobs, bounced from sales to waitressing to overnight stock work. But even there, rumors followed her. Small-town memory doesn't fade. It festers. Every time she tried to start over, someone would recognize her. Whisper her name. Say the words she hated most. Isn't she the reason Mark's gone? The money dried up first. She sold the furniture from our house, one piece at a time, listing it under fake accounts to avoid confrontation. The house itself? She lost it within a year. Foreclosure auctioned it off for half its worth. I watched the listing online. I saw strangers carrying out our couch, our dining table, our bed, the last fragments of the life she destroyed. Good. Let her watch strangers build new memories where she turned ours to ash. The real kicker? She tried to reach out to Jake, drunk at midnight, leaving voicemails, texts, begging. He posted one of her voicemails on social media. Captioned it. This is what snakes sound like when no one's left to bite. It went viral in town within hours. By year 2, she was renting a crumbling 1-bedroom over a payday loan store. No car. No friends. No family willing to take her in. Working double shifts at a diner, her eyes hollowed out from too many nights spent alone, wondering how everything slipped away. I could have left it there. Could have let her rot in silence. But silence was mercy. and she didn't deserve mercy. So I kept the pressure subtle. Little things. An anonymous tip to her employer whenever she got comfortable, hinting at past improprieties. Flyers stapled to telephone poles near her building. Missing. A loyal husband. If found, please return him to someone who deserved him. No names. No signatures. Just ghosts. Echoes of a life she once took for granted and now couldn't outrun. And every time she thought maybe, just maybe, she was forgotten, she'd see a name carved into the side of a tree on her walk to work. M plus S equals forever. Our initials. Faded, but still there. Still a reminder. Because the real punishment wasn't me yelling at her. It wasn't revenge in court or ugly fights on the front lawn. It was letting her live every day knowing she had destroyed the only man who ever really loved her. And the whole world knew it. I knew she shopped there. I knew the exact Saturday she went. The route she walked. The booth she lingered at longest. The honey vendor with the free samples and soft-spoken clerk who called everyone ma'am, like it still meant something. I'd known for months. I didn't stalk her. I observed her. I didn't chase. I waited. 5 years had passed since I vanished. Not slipped away, vanished. Intentionally, surgically, without a trace. 5 years since I walked away from the house I built, the vows she shattered, and the man she thought was too broken to fight back. What she never understood, what she still didn't, was that I never stopped paying attention. So when the time was right, when I had built enough distance between who I used to be and who I had become, I went to the market. Not to shop, to haunt. The morning was cool, crisp. My daughter held my hand, skipping beside me, a fresh flower crown already slipping from her curls. My son walked on my other side, quiet, observant, tall like I used to be before the weight of her betrayal pulled my shoulders inward. Now I stood straight again. Beside me was someone real. The kind of woman who listened without judgment, who didn't roll her eyes when I talked about my father, who laughed at my dry jokes like she meant it. We looked like any other family, but we weren't. We were what comes after survival, what grows in the soil of pain when you refuse to let it poison you. And then I saw her. Just ahead, hair tied back, hoodie up, sunglasses on like armor, clutching a cloth bag to her chest like it could block the shame from leaking out of her skin. She froze when she heard my voice. Not because I called her name. I didn't. I just said something to my daughter, soft, affectionate, and that alone was enough to stop Sarah in her tracks like she'd walked into a wall. She turned. Her eyes locked onto me. Her mouth parted like she was about to speak. And I didn't give her a thing. Not a nod. Not a glance. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. I simply turned with my family and kept walking. We passed within 5 feet of her. I felt her breath hitch. Saw her knees shift like they didn't know whether to run or drop. But I didn't stop. Because I wasn't there to offer closure. I was there to give her a mirror. One perfect reflection of what she could have had if she hadn't set fire to everything she touched. I let her look. Let her see the peace she'd never earn. Let her carry that moment like a brand across her memory, permanent, private, unwelcome. Because some ghosts don't scream. They just walk by you. With a smile that says, I survived. And she'll remember that smile every time she closes her eyes. Every time someone says my name. Every time she wonders what might have been, if she hadn't traded truth for a temporary thrill. I knew she'd come. Not that day. Not the next. But soon. Because that's how guilt works. It festers. It leaks out the edges when you think you've buried it. And when guilt finally sees the ghost it thought it buried, it panics. So when the knock came, I didn't jump. Didn't flinch. The doorbell rang twice, sharp, desperate, like a pulse about to flatline. I sent my girlfriend and the kids out the back, just like we discussed. She didn't know the whole story, only that the woman from my past might show up someday, looking for something she no longer had the right to touch. When I opened the door, Sarah was standing there in a cheap coat and jeans that hung off her like shame. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her hair tied up like she hadn't washed it in days. She looked like the last 5 years had chewed her up, swallowed her, and spit her out for good measure. You're alive, she said. Voice cracked. Like the words burned on the way out. I didn't reply. I just stepped aside and let her walk into the entryway. Not because I owed her anything, but because I wanted her to speak. I wanted to hear what version of the truth she'd rehearsed. She turned, looking at the clean walls, the framed photos of 2 kids she didn't recognize, the faint sound of laughter fading toward the woods. Her mouth moved, but the words took a second to catch. Why? She finally whispered. Why would you do that to me? Let me think you were dead. I raised an eyebrow. You mean like the way you slowly killed me while I was still in the house? She didn't answer. No, I said. Go on. Let's hear it. What exactly did I do to you, Sarah? She shook her head, tears starting to brim. I was lost. I was stupid. I didn't know what I was doing. Jake. He was never. Don't say his name. My voice was quiet, but sharp enough to make her jaw snap shut. You think this is about Jake? About some affair? You think I disappeared because of a bad decision? I stepped closer. I vanished because I needed you to see what you look like when there's no one left to blame. She broke then, started talking fast, almost tripping over the words. I never meant for it to happen that way. I was so angry all the time, and you were just there. Always so calm, so quiet, and I wanted to feel something, and you wanted to feel powerful, I said flatly. She froze. I nodded. So you mocked me, lied, took what I built and dragged it through someone else's bed. You didn't cheat, Sarah. You erased me, then cried when the mirror shattered. Her hands were shaking. You planned all of this, didn't you? She asked. I didn't answer, because silence was the answer. You let me fall apart. You watched my life burn down and said nothing. You wanted me to suffer. I stepped past her, opened the door. You suffered because you lied. I just let the truth do its job. She stood there, staring at me. Not as a husband, not even as a man she used to love, but as a reminder of everything she threw away for a moment of attention and lost forever. She didn't walk out. She backed out. Slow, like a thief realizing the home was never empty, just waiting. I closed the door behind her, and this time, there was no need to lock it. Because the ghost she'd been haunted by, he wasn't chasing her anymore. He was alive, and he had already won. It was late, almost midnight, when my son knocked on the door to my office. He didn't say anything at first, just stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to ask the question he was holding. He was 6 now, old enough to notice things. Maybe not enough to understand that sometimes grown-ups rewrite their past to survive their future. Dad, he asked, who was that woman today? I didn't look up right away. Let the question sit there between us for a moment. He'd inherited my patience, my habit of watching before speaking. I closed the folder I'd been reading, some mundane work stuff, and leaned back in my chair. That was someone from before. He nodded like he already knew. She seemed off. That made me smile, just a little. She is. He looked down at his hands. Was she important? I took a breath. Not a heavy one. Not the kind filled with pain or grief. Just one I'd earned. She was once, I said, but not in the way that matters now. He didn't push for details. Didn't ask names or stories. He just said, you didn't look at her. Not once. That caught me. He'd noticed. The way I didn't flinch. The way I let her stand there while the past peeled off her face and crumbled. Sometimes, I told him, the best thing you can do with the past is survive it, and then walk right past it like it doesn't get to touch you anymore. He was quiet a long time. Then he said, I hope no one ever does that to me. And I looked him dead in the eyes. They will, I said. Someone always does. But when they do, don't break. Don't scream. Don't beg. Watch. Listen. Wait. Then build something they'll never get to touch. He didn't say anything else. Just nodded and left the room. And that was it. No long speech. No dramatic ending. Just the truth handed from one man to the next. Because this was never about revenge. Not really. It was about clarity. About learning who people are when no one's watching. About seeing betrayal not as your end, but your origin. That woman at the door? She died the same night I did. The only difference? I came back. She never did. The fire pit crackled in front of me, low and steady. Smoke curled into the night sky like breath from something ancient and exhausted. The kids had gone to bed hours ago. My woman too. Now it was just me, a cold drink in my hand, and the weight of 5 years that didn't feel heavy anymore. People think revenge is about fire, screaming, explosions, payback. They're wrong. Real revenge is quiet. It's a man with no one left to answer to, sitting in peace while the person who tried to destroy him is out there still choking on her own choices. She still sees me when she closes her eyes. Not the man I was, but the man she created. The one who smiled as he walked past her like she never mattered. The one who built something real where she left ruins. I never needed her to suffer loudly. I just needed her to know she lost something that can't be bought, begged for, or rebuilt. She lost me. I watched her bury the version of me she thought she killed, and when I came back, it wasn't to save her. It was to show her what survival really looks like. My hands still work. My kids still laugh. My heart still beats. But not for her. Never again. I looked into the fire and smiled. Not because I was happy, because I was free. And freedom, I've learned, doesn't always come wrapped in justice. Sometimes it shows up in the form of a closed door, a silent phone, a man who no longer flinches when he hears her name. I took a long sip of my drink and let the silence settle. Then I said it not loud, just enough for the flames to hear. She thought disappearing was the end of me. It was the beginning of her punishment. And I didn't say anything else, because that was the last thing she'd ever deserved from me. Silence.